Ladies and gents, we are back with another hand review with the one and only Sebastien Wen, Carrot Corner coach, and today he has brought us a real treat. The first hand with Ace 10 offsuit is all about critical thinking. Can you reason your way through a hand and give each factor the right amount of weight? If you can do this, the right answer often jumps out at you. The second hand is a very creative, inventive line with the Jack 7 of clubs on the river, which I was really impressed by. The Ace King hand that we do third is an example of just having the confidence to make what we would call at Carrot Corner the fold of a lion. A real brave fold that takes a lot of nerve. Sometimes it's easier to press the call button than the fold button. And in the last hand with Jack 5 of diamonds, we have another self-confessed mistake from Sebastien. He thinks he's gone wrong on the river in this hand. Find out what he thinks he should have done. Get into those in just a second. Sebastien is one of our coaches in the subscription service. He's making a series called Road to Pro that I'm very excited about, and his content, some of it, is already live on Carrot Corner, so do check that out after this video, and do subscribe for more poker content there from both myself, my True AV series, and our other very strong poker players and coaches that we've taken on. Okay, let's get to the action here. All right, Sebastien, we are back for the second part of this hand review. If you haven't watched the first part, we'll stick the link in the description for you guys. Let's pick up the action here with the Ace 10 offsuit. This is another hand that was played at the 200 Blitz on ACR, I believe. Last time we saw some punts by you, some heroic check behinds by you, some cool bluffs, some really thin, impressive value bets. We saw it all. I wonder if today is going to be as exciting. Open call call. And we have top pair on Ace King 7. We check. Seems reasonable. How does this turn into an event?
Oh, you'll see.
We check
Trouble
again.
finds me.
Checks all the way to the river. All right. I'm convinced. Let's have a pop for value. What size are we going?
I forget. I have half pot, 3/4, something. Yeah.
Okay, audience. Fingers on your keypads. Is this a call? Is this a fold? Or is this an absolutely chaotic spew punt? Decide now. What do you think, Sebastien?
I think, Pete, if you guess his exact hand, I will be more impressed than ever before.
I did a great job of that in the last episode that we put out. I got like 2 for 2. I don't think I can do it this time. But I'm guessing you saw his hand based on this analysis. I'm guessing you called, therefore.
Yeah.
What's your thought process here, first of all, before I guess his hand? Like, give me some clues as to what you were thinking at the time.
So my thought process is that my hand is in a different bluff catcher. Theoretically, it's a slightly losing bluff catcher because it doesn't contain a diamond. And way more important than any of that is the fact that nobody is taking this line for value. Like, I really just didn't believe for this size that he's... first of all, he flats the small blind, right? And he had a slightly broken stack, so I'm going to lean towards fish. And then, and so if maybe I can give a reg for credit for somehow getting here with 7-6 of diamonds or something, but I don't really believe that, to be honest with you. And for a fish, it just, you can see if you look at his perspective too, my hand looks very much like this because I didn't value bet the turn or the flop, so I look like I have something very marginal. So I guess it is a bit of a leveling thing, but most importantly is that no one finds the double delay trap for for value. So
yeah, and this goes back to what you were saying about Road to Pro. The series that you're making for the Carrot Corner subscribers and a subscription service is live by this point in time. Hopefully, if nothing disastrous went wrong, recording this in the past. But yeah, you can head over to Carrot Corner to find some content from Sebastien. Road to Pro is coming out soon. And you mentioned 3 things last time we chatted about that series. I think I'll try and remember them. You can tell me if I get this right. You mentioned that the skills were like theoretical knowledge, mass data / exploitative patterns of where things are overbluffed, underfolded, etc. And the third one was like the sort of rationality of thinking through a hand, like sort of reasoning and logic. And I think that what you just did there was called factorial prioritization, right? To give it a fancy name, where you like listed some factors and you said, well, if these were all equal in weight, we'd be torn because there's like some going in one way and some going in the other way. But because they're not equal in weight, it's very clear what to do. And again, we can use the eat the dog analogy here, which is a classic carrot corner analogy of eating the dog. So if you imagine that I say, in favor of eating my dog tonight, the dog's there, it's in the house, it's convenient, I'm hungry, there's a lot of calories in the dog, so it would sustain me for quite a while, and I like meat. So there's 4 factors in favor of eating the dog. But you only have to list like 1 factor against. Like, that's a horrific, cruel, barbaric thing to do before like the 4 don't matter anymore. And that's because like 1 factor is worth more than the others. So in this spot, what you're kind of saying is the fact that nobody ever gets here with the value hand is such a prominent factor. It presides over so many of the humans in this pool that none of the other shit really matters, because none of that presides over as many people. So it's a powerful thought process. And I think you've convinced me, because my first gut reaction to this was like, oh, the fish probably just somehow has it. But like, the more I think about it, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to guess his hand then. You said you'd be impressed if I guessed it, which probably means that it's something absurd. I bet it's something that like can't even win at showdown. And the reason I'm going to say that is that a lot of fish would just call if they thought you were weak with a hand that could win at showdown. I don't think he's turning showdown into bluff so much. I'm actually going to go for something really stupid. I'm going to go for 6-5 suited. Okay, I wasn't a million miles away. I was on the right lines, I think, with the no showdown value.
You know, if you held a gun to my head and said he does have value here, like you called and he had value, what is his value? I would guess Jack 10 of diamonds. That is the only hand I can really think of. So yeah,
it's that whole, my hand is so good and I'm so scared if someone folds, I'm just not going to risk the bad thing happening, and I'm just going to check. Yeah. Okay, next hand. All right, the Jack 7 of clubs. A fine starting hand. Got a thing for this hand, not going to lie. 3 big blinds. Call. 9-5-8. Loads of checking, I'd imagine, in theory. This anything exploitative going on here? Is this just a reg? Any thoughts?
Just a reg, no reads. Can't remember if this is ACR 400 or ACR 200 zoom. Can check raise here. I think versus people you respect, you should sprinkle in a decent amount of check call. And because people are not going to check call that much with a gutty type of thing, this is like a double gutty, but you're going to get paid more on nodes where you hit because they expect most of the bluffs to check raise. So
yeah. And most importantly, like, it's okay that you don't have showdown value when you still have a river probe opportunity ahead of you when turn goes check check. That's kind of the theory point that matters there.
Yeah.
If you're out of position on the turn, not so good, because you'd have to donk bet to bluff, right? Not so good. But on the flop, bags the time. Don't stress it. Yep, I like. Okay, so do we just have to raise the nut double gutter now? Like, we can't call, can't fold? Is it one of those spots, or can we call? I don't think we can call.
I think that we are indifferent in theory between all 3 options.
Wow. I would have thought raise was better than call. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, the, usually if the hand can fold and it can raise, it can also call. And yeah, I wasn't exactly sure what I liked. I didn't really believe him, but I also didn't really believe that if I check raised here, he would give me a lot of credit for pocket 5s, pocket 8s. Certainly not for, it seems almost too thin with kings to check raise here. So I didn't really feel like if I check raised, I would get a lot of folds. And if we fold, we can't win the hand, which is something I teach in Road to Pro. So landed on call.
Nice, yeah. Okay. I have to confess, I generally underestimate the utility of call in these spots. I guess one thing we could... Yeah, go ahead.
One nice thing about finding calls with hands that are just really close in theory, and most people would lean towards fold, is that you actually get to the river with air. And that can be good when people are like, well, what the hell are his bluffs here? Right? He's not going to turn diamonds into bluffs, so I don't know how he can have a bluff. So there's a few hands we might look at today where that is kind of a nice utility of finding the loose call on the turn.
Are there any textures where we can donk river?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't play a lot of donks, but you can donk on a diamond probably, usually for like a block size to say that you had a trap that can beat their thin value that has to check back now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to donk just saying you have diamonds very often,
Yeah,
but
because you have a lot more showdown value diamond here, 9x of diamonds, etc. You have a lot of that stuff going on here with this line.
hmm
Yeah, okay.
hmm
So it might be that it wouldn't shock me if it was the case that, like, if you node lock donk out of the equation, call drops an EV from the equilibrium. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, I wouldn't normally make this call. There was just something in the water that day,
mhm.
and yeah.
What's going to happen now? We check. Okay, so we've missed. We've given up. The hand is over. We've lost. Unless we decide to do something creative. All right, so what's villain's value range here? Before we get to our blockers and bluff selection and all of that good stuff, and I know that's coming because this is a small range spot, so I'm sure some blocker analysis is appropriate here. But first off, what's villain's value range?
So his value range should contain Jack 10, pocket nines. Well, no, sorry, not pocket nines, pocket fives,
Mhm.
I guess. Um, Queen 9. Um, yeah, that's about it. And then the other thing is that I do think most regs are going to split sizings on the river, and they're probably going to lean most of them towards larger with a really strong hand because they don't expect to get check raised enough to make up for the EV
Yeah,
of betting smaller.
I think that's really fair. So in reality, then, we don't think that the Jack 10 that should be mixing between all in and this is actually doing that. We think it's usually just going all in or over betting or something. And then we think that this is therefore like a really weird batch of hands. Like this has to then be like the 9/8s of the world, the 8/5 suited of the world, like that kind of stuff. Maybe like the is like King Queen or something. And betting twice seems bizarre. Like King Queen of diamonds, it seems weird. Seems kind of thin as well. Maybe not that thin, but kind of thin. Yeah, okay. I'm sold on the fact that this could be over bluffed for this sizing based on your read that, like, again, too many of the hands that are being repped aren't there. Similar to what happened in the last hand where we, you know, kind of heroed the raise from the fish. We're just like, you haven't arrived here with enough of your good stuff. And here it's the case that you haven't chosen the sizing with enough of your good stuff. Maybe that might be the exploit. Okay.
I mean, look, even if his range is 100% value, the fold, the equity of jam might still be pretty high
Mm.
because I have 16 combos of Jack 10, right? And they probably all play close to this way.
I mean, you'll raise flop sometimes. You'll probably call turn all the time, or almost all the time. You might raise like very occasionally. Yeah, you get here with most of them. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, just because you're gonna, yeah, you can check raise Jack 10 on the flop, but you're gonna want to try to control your frequency because of how bad the board is. So
Yep, for sure. Nice. Okay, and blocker wise, we blocked Jack 10, which is nice. We blocked 6/7, which is nice. So we have like the uber straight blockers here because villain also has 6/7 offsuit in this node, correct? Because it's blind versus blind. So that's a
well,
lot
it's
of
mixed, but yeah.
that's a lot of power.
Yeah, I think we have the nuts to bluff. Maybe we want not Jack 7 of hearts, but yeah.
And if we had a pair, would that pair actually block the folding range more than it would block the calling range? Like, do we think that people are bet folding two pair here as like a lot of their bet folds? Like, is that fair? So if you had something like an 8 and you check jam with it, could it even be worse than the Jack 7? That feels weird to me because usually the pair plus straight blocker is the better jam in these spots than the two dangler cards, but like maybe not here because there's multiple straights you're blocking.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think actually an 8 is blocking some of the. I'm expecting him to have tons of thin value, and I'm betting on the fact that he's going to fold thin value. So an 8 does not block any sets because he's going to 3-bet 8s almost all the time. So it's not a good blocker actually.
Okay, in game, like obviously out of game, we've made a really extensive analysis and we've got lost in the woods of blockers, etc. people might be wondering, in game, how do we get to a thought process like this? Like, how on earth does the viewer who's watching this, and they might be thinking about it now, going, yeah, that makes perfect sense, but they're not unlocking that themselves. So what can people do with, 15 seconds on the clock here? How to use those 15 seconds in the best way to actually land on plays like this, to get creative and find bluffs in situations like this?
It's kind of a hard question to answer. I mean, I think often what you want to maybe think back to, and we had a hand the first time you and I talked where I had ace jack of hearts. If you remember that your turn spot was like really close and your hand doesn't get there very often, you kind of want to keep in the back of your mind that you have a bit of a unicorn, and the unicorn hands are going to have a little bit more utility some of the time. I do worry that there's maybe like if you imitate here with not a lot of experience, you might end up punting a lot. But I think that's the only other thing that's going into the creativity here, is like, this is just not a hand I have here very often. And so it's a really nice spot to find something with. And like in the ace jack of hearts example, it was just really tough not to have a spade. So it's just an idea to be aware of, is like trying to make sure that you actually counterintuitively have air in spots where it's tough to have air, because then your opponent is probably going to overfold on that node.
Or at least that if you do happen to have air and you have a strong range, you note it and you say, weak hand, strong range. That looks like a good bluff spot, without some, weird exploitative read that tells you your opponent's stationing. That's what episode 2 of True EV is all about. It's called Weak Hand, Strong Range. It's just about noting that pattern and going for it in those spots. Alex also has a series coming out about when to actually follow through rivers when the rest of your bluffs are hitting en masse and you have one that misses. This is about like straight completing rivers. He has a whole episode about this in his new series that's coming out pretty soon, which is called Aggress to Impress. And it's a really good pattern. It's really important that when lots of your stuff has got there already, and it'd be hard for you to have air, that you actually find the bluff in a spot, especially against a player that's on a level where they understand roughly what your range looks like. And Villain folded. We got it through. Great job. No punts this week. We had the 9-6 of hearts in the last episode. It was a bit of a punt. No punts.
Some kind of like punts in the sense that I play them a little crazy and it works out. And then discipline folds. I don't know what happened to me. So, yeah.
A game session. So this is one of the, well, no spoilers. Let's see what happens. Ace king off. Open. Go for big on ace 7-3. Interesting. Okay. I've mainly seen smaller sizes here. So what's your...
Small size is normal. I like to use sizes that I understand, that like make sense, that I can build a game plan around. If you bet small here, you're kind of saying like you're getting value with tens and then denying equity from queen jack or something like that. I just simplify to like kind of betting top pair and checking the rest of the time, and that's how I prefer to play.
And these are probably equally performing strategies in most spots at equilibrium.
It's really tough to have significant EV regret based on your c-bet strategy. You just want to understand it. And yeah.
Overbetting the 5 turn. Seems okay.
A little thin, but fine.
Yeah. It's one of these ones where like we'll check back on some rivers and things after we overbet this texture's turn like quite a lot, probably. But yeah, it's okay for now. And then we get min clicked. What's Villain up to? What's his range? What's Pool doing? So many questions. How should we think about this?
Well, for bluffs, it's a little bit weird to click a flush draw, because you probably have to think in game that you have very little fold equity and you might get denied all of your equity. So I don't really see the point of a shove or something. I'm kind of like a little bit more worried about bluffs. This really seems to me like pocket threes, pocket sevens, pocket fives, ace 5, ace 7 suited, ace 3 suited.
4-6 suited.
Oh yeah, 4-6 suited as well. Yeah.
Deuce 4 suited. Drowning in value, you might say.
Yeah.
Like I think Villain is like kind of in a big pool of value and trying to stay afloat with bluffs, and he's like, I can bluff here, but really he's just getting dragged under all the value and sucked up into the value lake. So yeah, my first thoughts...
Reg too, but
But you know, they're still human. Good regs are still
Yeah.
human. We make mistakes. You know, you make mistakes. Our other coaches make mistakes. We see them. You know, it was a hand that Cruiser said he butchered the other day. Like, we all make mistakes, and like when the spot's so counterintuitive to bluff in like this one, like here you've got to be bluffing like 5-4 and stuff like that, right? These are kind of the hands that are going to do it at some frequency. It's going to be some really high equity draw type hand maybe, but then like there is that threat that this is just like the absolute like Goldilocks zone for you to jam to deny equity, right? It's just that it's that perfect SPR where you're going to be really incentivized to do that when you have the top of your value bet range, even in position if villain is building an equity driven bluff raising range. So I get it, yeah. So let's just fold immediately. Let's just say, well, fuck that. Let's not even hang around. If we think this is mega underbluffed, why are we going to call one? I hate it when people say, you've got to call one here, man. Like, you can't fold yet. Like, sure, it's terrible, but you can't fold yet. You got to call one. Shut up. What are you talking about? This is now where you call one and try and justify it.
No.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah. Also, I just want to beat a dead horse that let's say this really good reg is finding all of the bluffs he's supposed to find and has the perfect bluff frequency. We have to understand that this hand is an indifferent bluff catcher because it doesn't beat any value. The removal properties are non-existent really, so it's just whatever. It's a 0 EV hand. So if he finds enough bluffs and I folded, good for him. In the long run, I made $0 by folding and $0 by calling. So, yeah, just I think good spot to fold.
But there's a paranoia about being bested and bullied and dominated by a fellow rival human. And that's bad because then we lose our food and we starve and we get kicked out of the tribe and we don't get to make children's. So that's bad, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I want kids, but sounds bad.
Yeah, but you at least want to not be clubbed to death before you could decide that for yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's fair to fear these things though, because it's like deeply embedded in our evolutionary history, and it's difficult to, when you have like a big weapon like Ace King and you know it's fortune reversal and you're in the habit of value betting here and you're going with the flow, you're feeling great, and then this happens. Like Melissa and I on Poker Distilled did a whole episode about like just how hard it is to actually fold in a spot like this, like how to process that fortune reversal. So yeah, no easy feat. Jack 5 of diamonds, this is going to be our final hand for today. This has been a blast. We'll need to do this again at some point. Real quick, how can people find you if they want to get in touch with you and, you know, they obviously find a bit of info about you in the Carrot Corner bio page, but where else are you known in the poker world and where do you sort of sell your coaching and reach out to people?
You can go to colliepokercoaching.ca. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is Collie Poker. You can check me out on 2+2 in the coaching forum. I use my username Franach. FRANCACH. And that's about it. Yeah.
Cool. So Jack 5 of diamonds, we open, a call happens, we check. So we're building some checks here. Are you not a proponent of, so we can range bet here? Like, you're not a proponent of that?
No, I'm not a proponent of that. It's one of these spots where everyone plays every part of it wrong. So you could range bet and people wouldn't raise enough in response to that. But you can also check and people are going to overstab in response. Then you can have an aggressive check raising range. So there's multiple ways to win in this node.
Interesting stuff. Okay. Check call seems right. As played. If you play a pool like 100 NL on a soft site or 50 NL on a soft site that's full of recreational players, the stabs are like unbelievable. It's like they have zero textual recognition skills at all. It's like they're just a robot that doesn't even scan the board. They just scan the action. They're like, check, therefore half pot. And it's just like insane. So big
but they're not
believer
getting
in
check
that.
raised enough. So if you're like, why is this idiot doing this? Well, prove him wrong, right? Check raise him more.
Yeah. Yep. It's like continuing to play scissors and being like, God, this moron just keeps playing rock. Like, what's he doing? Yep. Check, check. 6 river. So because villain bet half pot on the flop, I'm guessing Jack 5 does not get to value bet this node against someone who half potted flop and checked back turn.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like he's probably got King 10 or something.
Or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Queen 10, 8-7 of hearts. Yeah.
So 1 big blind, check. These are the 2 options. Is there a difference between like 1 big blind and check?
one big blind's tougher to balance, I guess. I mean, you don't get a lot back for it, and then they might say, okay, when he checks, he doesn't have a pair. But, you know, in a vacuum, yeah, one big blind's fine. 10% block is never that bad with a hand that has the equity to do it.
Yeah, because villain's then going to have to start calling some hands that are kind of showdown valueless and like lose to bluffs and stuff like that just to hit MDF. Like they don't have enough, or maybe they don't need to hit MDF here. That's a silly thing to say. Of course they don't, but they need to hit some defense frequency, whatever that is in theory, and they probably have to call like ace high and things like this against 10% pot. But yeah, okay, yeah. Check and 10% pot are both fine. In real life, probably we want to take the line that will be the most overbluffed since we're calling here, so I prefer check. I just think if you 10%, it might be bluffed less than if you check, so why go down that rabbit hole, I guess.
You were asking a question for the benefit of the student that might bet 10% here.
I was just exploring. I was just rummaging around, you know. I was just thinking about options. It's good to...
You're like a badger in the GTO forest.
God, YouTube just gets cornier and cornier. One day I'm going to wake up, look in the mirror, and just, like, hate myself. But not quite yet.
Okay.
Over a bet. So you're saying you have potted a 6, or you've decided that King 10 is now the nuts? This makes no sense. This makes, like, the least sense across 3 streets of anything ever. Like, this is really wild. Like, what's he saying here?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, my first thought is he was saying King 10's the nuts, or he just thought that I would fold if he overbet a bluff.
Do you know what's
doesn't make a lot of sense.
Do you know what's really sad, though?
What?
This is a moment for us to really contemplate, you know, the strife of others in poker, you know, to think of those less fortunate than ourselves. Because we're sitting here on our high horse going, ha, 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 this is overbluffed, ha, ha, ha. But, like, when you first start out in this game, the first 2 things you see are like the 6 pairing, the big sizing that you're not that used to. You're playing some low stake, you know, you don't see a lot of this. And it might be tempting just to be like, well, I only have Jack 5. And like, that's how people end up folding here. But I think the real crux of this is just hand read. Learn to hand read. What's his landing range? Like people, you know, I keep, oh my God, you actually went for this? That's, wow. Wow. Oh my God. I'm shocked. I would have just called. Okay, now we have a whole different... Okay, now we get to have that discussion, but not yet, because first I want to finish this point, which is the landing range of your opponent. Someone said in a thread, and I've never let this go, this is the one criticism that stuck with me the most, apart from the one where someone said I sounded like a witch. That was hurtful. But someone also said that I like to invent stupid terms with stuff that already exists, such as landing range. But landing range is really powerful because it makes it clear that we're talking about not the range that does this, but the range that got here, the range that arrived here. Because if you start to contemplate that separately, you don't miss the fact that villain has a bazillion combos that arrive on the river, and then it only takes the very small, I've decided to bluff you this time frequency before villain's over bluffing. So that's why I think landing range is really important, and that's why folding for me is like completely out of the question here. This is not something I even considered. This was not on my radar, so you're going to have to sell this to me if you want me to buy this.
I don't know if I want to sell it to you. It's kind of a broken down car. It's got some problems. He seemed like a nice guy. Yeah, I mean, we have all of the 6X. He has none of the 6X. We conceivably have all of the boats, and he has none of the boats. And, you know, I don't think you need to have bluffs, but it's kind of nice to have a few bluffs. Queen 10, 10-9, maybe not ideal bluffs, blocking his bluffing range. I think call is just cleaner and better, and we have enough equity with call, but I thought that with a raise here, we would have some fold equity from King 9, King 10.
Yep, so that's interesting. So you're kind of saying, I know call is really winning, like I'm not folding, but if I raise, one, I get to be a guy that raises in a spot where no one raises, but secondly, like if villain is then value betting King 9, I think King 9 is allowed to do this for what it's worth. Like I don't think this is unreasonable actually with like King 10 or something. Then we also get to like get this through more than we need to or something like that. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think you did a good job of selling me that semi-broken down car. I think I'm still going to buy the other car and call, but you at least made me consider it.
I think that car without wheels, I'm gonna pass, Sebastian. No, I respect that. I think this is a bit of a blunder. Um,
And Villain showed 3, 2, 1. Trips.
what? That's so annoying.
So this is where we might go back to the flop and we might say, if you don't know this guy because you're playing, oh, this is 500 NL, so maybe you did know this guy.
Yeah, this is a reg.
Okay.
I don't understand what he's,
I mean, for third pot, it's a bit weird. For half pot, it just seems like a polarization mistake in this wide range of a spot.
Yeah.
Like, this hand just seems too good. But I guess there could be some 6x from time to time, like, if you don't know the player. So for the audience that are playing, like, again, 2550 NL, this plays horrendous on the river, because, like, you will run into way more 6x than Sebastian's going to run into here against the reg at 500. So Sebastian's line is way more defensible than your line would be if you tried this. Don't you even try to be Sebastian, guys. Do not try this at home. Just call. Don't fold. Don't raise. If you fold, if you raise...
You don't deserve to play the game. I'm not going to try the Scottish this time. I got one clean recording of it.
You did well, and I think you've been sensible there not to risk blemishing that with a second attempt. It's never as good the second time. Right?
That's right.
Nothing is. Only do everything once. And on that note, with that wisdom, we will wrap it up. Don't forget to check out Carrot Corner for more of Sebastian's content. Really brave of you to bring like one punty-ish hand where you may have blundered onto each show. I think people love seeing that authenticity. Like, you know, professional high-stakes poker players can make mistakes as well. Sebastian doesn't always play 200 Zoom 500. He also plays higher games as well. Just before that, trolls like, oh my god, he said 200 was high stakes. Shut up. Get out of here. And we'll see you guys soon. The rest of you, not that guy, on Carrot Corner. He shouldn't come back. Bye for now.